Hello and welcome. Today we're discussing this stamp set from Hero Arts. It's the December kit. As of today, when I checked, this kit is still available on their webpage, which is highly unusual. Usually they sell out in a few days. I had noticed a few people talking about it that they were kind of disappointed. I can see their opinions. I get that. I also think this is really cool because I don't have any stamps in my collection that are like this. I mean, I really like the hills. You could use this for lots of stuff. I like that there's a little section of silhouettes. Those would make really fun, fast cards. And these are kind of neat too. So, if you look at it from the standpoint of a challenge, this is kind of different because I don't have anything like this. So this is going to be fun, I think. I hope. I also purchased a few of the add-ons. I love this. Love, 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 love. This is my absolute favorite. So I can't wait to use this. I also picked up the Genie set because I thought that could make some fun cards. I also thought it could make some masculine cards, which is always a bonus. I picked up the Skyline, and I picked up 2 of the background stamps. So went a little nuts shopping this month, but hopefully the cards will be worth it and we'll have some fun. When I looked at the stamp set, one of the things that came to mind was like sunsets or sunrises, or that twilight time. I don't know. It's just something exotic or like magical about that time of day, and I think it fits the theme of this stamp set really well. So I'm sure several of the cards will feature some sort of sunset. Definitely going to create one here for card number 1. I have a panel that's cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I'm going to use a brayer, and I'm inking this up with a light yellow ink. And I have a piece of fun foam underneath my paper, and I'm slowly going to start tinting the top of this panel yellow. And if you've ever done this, it does take a little while to build up color. But I think the results of this are pretty dramatic, and I love the way it looks. It's a very old school technique. I don't think people generally don't do a lot of brayering. Most people do this with distress inks now, which you could, and I probably will do that on another card later in this video. But I thought this was a fun thing to kind of bring back. Okay, so the top portion of this card is yellow. I might do just one more coat. There we go. Smooth that out a little more. And now what I'm going to do is take a circle that I cut out of a Post-it note, and I'm going to put this, I don't know, right about there. And that's going to be my sun or my moon in this case. I'm going to put away my yellow ink, and I'm going to get out orange. And because this is a darker color, I can use the same brayer without washing. And now I'm inking this up in orange ink. And I'm going to go right over that yellow. Oops, I really want that to stick down. I'm going to add a little bit more temporary adhesive to this. It's not sticking very well. There we go. Don't usually have a problem with Post-it notes sticking, but I am today. Alright. I'm just darkening up that a little more. And now I'm going to put my orange away. And I happen to own 2 brayers, mostly because I teach classes and it's easier in a classroom setting. But it's also handy when you're switching colors. And now I'm taking a purple color and inking up my other brayer. And I'm going to come from this on the other side. Let me move this. And I'm going to start darkening up the bottom portion of this card. And the one thing I really like about a brayer is it has like a subtle transition between the orange and the purple. Where with Distress inks, I don't think it's as subtle. And these inks, I mean, they do blend, but not as much as Distress inks, and I think it just kind of adds a really cool look to this. So I'm going to call that done. I like that. I'm going to set this aside. Now I can pull my Post-it note off, and it's a little fuzzy around the edges, but I actually like that. It makes it look like it's really hot out, I suppose. And then I'm going to pull the stamp of the hills, the desert hills. I think we're going to have to stamp this more than once. That's all right. And I'm going to use my mini Misty to do that. So I'm going to put this up here. Okay, so what I figured out is that it does fit inside the Misty or the regular size Misty really well, and I don't need a mask to continue stamping this. So I set this up. And there we go. Now this doesn't line up perfectly right here. I don't know if you can see that. It's a minor thing, but I can fix that, not a big deal. All right, so I'm closing up my VersaFine, and I'm gonna take this out of the Misty for now. And what I did was I created a mask, but a reverse mask. And I have some temporary or removable adhesive. I'm going to put that down towards the edges of this because I really don't want it to lift up. And I'm going to put that along our sky. Okay, good enough. And then I picked up my Distress ink and blender, and I am going to sponge this in, and I'm hoping I can make it look really black. Might have to, I'm experimenting here, guys, so I don't pre-plan these out. I did that in the first video and it took forever. So I thought maybe people would appreciate seeing the process. This is how card making goes, right? Trial and error, learning, and seeing each step. So here we go. Now I'm not being able to get this dark enough by sponging, so I'm going to try direct to paper. And that's getting darker. I really want this to be black. I didn't want to be able to see the lines that were in the design, the original design. So let's pull this up and see what we got. There we go. So now we have this sandy dune along the bottom of our card. This is covered in ink. You definitely don't want to get that on your card. So set that aside somewhere safe. I'm going to put this away too. And now I'm going to go back to my Misty. And I'm going to put my card back in. Keep in mind that this is definitely wet. I probably don't need all these magnets in here, so just kind of nowhere else to put them at the moment. All right, and I'm going to take the sand dunes off, and I'm going to pick up the line of camels that are in the stamp set. Okay, so this stamp here, that's the whole like string of camels. And I'm just slowly bending this stamp to fit along the edge of that sand dune. And I'm not going to ink up the last camel that's up in the air. We'll work on that guy in a minute. I'm going to ink it up one more time. Now I'm going to position this again so I can stamp that last camel and have him follow along here, and our little Camel Parade. Okay. So the only thing I'm inking up this time is the last camel, just to complete this image. So check that out. So we have our camels walking across the dunes at this sunrise, sunset, however you want to argue that. I'm choosing to use the sentiment I'd cross the Sahara for you. I'm going back to my mini Misty just because it's a little bit easier to manage here. And I'm going to place Sahara right across that sun, and it fits perfectly inside that area. And I'm going to use my VersaFine just so everything matches. It's that nice dark black. Perfect. And then I'm going to mount this onto a folded black card base. So I decided this needed a white mat, so I trimmed my panel down just a smidgen and made a mat that's slightly bigger so it'll fit onto an A2 card. And I'm just going to glue this together. Okay. So this is card number 1. Okay, for card number 2, I cut a panel that's 4.5 by 3.25. It has this stitched border around the edge of it. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment first. It says, "You light up the night." And I am going to stamp this in VersaFine because I want it to be nice and black. And I'm going to stamp that there. And there are 3 lamps, or 3, yeah, I guess lamps are the right word, in this stamp set. And I'm going to kind of stamp, and this I'm stamping in Memento because I am going to color this with my Copics. I don't really have a plan here. I'm just kind of creating a scene of lights. And so now I'm going to color these off screen to save you guys the torture of watching that. Alright, so I have this panel colored. I didn't do anything really fancy. I just picked out jewel tones. I thought that was kind of, I don't know, just went with the flow of what I was thinking. And what I'm going to do now is grab my T-ruler, and I'm going to draw in the strings for these lamps. I'm trying to draw them from the top of the card all the way down to the center of the lamp. Alright, so now we have the strings drawn in. I'm going to set this aside, set my ruler aside, and I took a piece of purple cardstock, and I'm going to take one of those background stamps, and I'm picking this one because I think it looks like it matches the lights, like the shapes on the lights a little more. And I'm going to ink it up with purple ink. Okay, I think that's pretty. Alright, so now I'm going to take a piece of fun foam and glue this back to the panel. And there we go. Card number 2 is complete. Alright, for card number 3, I die cut another panel with the stitched borders. This is just a hair bigger than the panel from the last card. And I'm inking up the hills again from the stamp set. And I'm going to stamp them across this panel. Oops, I got a little smudge. I think that'll be okay. And then I'm going to find the mask that I created earlier. I'm going to mask that off and ink this up again. That looks okay. So I'm just kind of creating this hilly background. Ooh, this is a mess. Let me see if I can clean this up with sand eraser. I have noticed that this stamp just picks up ink everywhere. So be careful when you're inking it up on your projects. Alright, it's not 100% perfect. The spot that's the worst is right here, but you know what? I think it'll be okay once we're all done with this. I'm going to put my hills back, and just because we're in the stamping phase, I'm going to do all my stamping right now. So I'm going to add my sentiment. I'm going to use the one that says, "I will never desert you," which is very cute. And I'm going to stamp this in Memento because I am going to use Copics on this. And I might need to color over this sentiment. I don't want to ruin my Copics. So I'm inking it up in Memento. And I'm going to place that at the top. And then I'm going to use our camels again on this card. And I'm going to place them at the bottom. As they were walking. And what I like about this is, I'm sorry I got off screen there a little bit, the camels kind of make this look massive. I mean, it kind of just puts it all in perspective because we know kind of how big a camel is, but then when you put that, it just makes it look like a huge desert, and I just think that fits the sentiment of the card. Alright, so I'm going to color these desert dunes and I'll be back. Alright, so here's my panel all colored up. It was actually really easy to do and a lot of fun, and those little smudges that were in there, I just made those sections darker so I don't even think they're that noticeable. So what I'm going to do to finish this card off is I'm going to take some Versamark and ink up our sand dunes again. And I'm going to stamp a piece of craft cardstock with the sand dunes. And look, I'm not being real careful here. I'm just trying to add some interest to the back of this panel. There we go. I love just the little swirls around it. It kind of makes it look like the desert is continued in the background. It's kind of a neat look. I think this is perfect for a masculine card. You could add like gemstones or sequins and all that stuff, but sometimes I think we get a little too carried away with all that. I kind of like the clean and simple look. So there you go. There's card number 3. All right, for card number 4, I decided that I wanted to do like a night sky. And so I'm going to use some distress inks, distress oxide inks. And I decided that I'm going to do peacock feathers down here at the bottom. And these are fairly new to me. I know some people have been on this train for a while. Okay, so I have peacock feathers down, and now I'm going in with wilted violet. Alright, we might come in and add some more. This is a experiment here. And what I'm going to do is create kind of like what we did on the first card. I want to create a sand dune here. And it worked really well with the first time, so I'm going to do it again with just regular distress ink, direct to paper. And let's see, I know I have some white, so I know I need to adjust this a little bit, but alright, so let's move this up here. Just didn't go high enough, but It's kind of neat. And I still have some area here. Well, I'm going to let this dry and then I can go back in and blend some colors in on top. I don't want to go too nuts here. Alright, so I'm going to set this aside again because it's all gross and gooey. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stamp my camel here. Let's see, how do I want them? Okay. Stamp the little camel dude. This is the big one. So is take a black marker and I'm going to color on top of this camel and make it into a silhouette. Okay, so I have my whole camel colored in, and now I'm going to do a tiny bit more blending here. Kind of darkening this up. I want this, again, to look like a night sky, and don't want it to be too bright. So especially at the edges, I think the right name for that is vignette. It's kind of, I'm going to go back and add some more purple too. I was going to put the sentiment across the Sahara for you, but because this kind of looks like light shining up over the hill, and I like the way it looks, I'm actually going to change my mind here, and I'm going to put the other sentiment that says, "You light up the night." And I am going to stamp this in Versamark, or Versafine, I'm sorry, because then it'll be nice and black, and I think it'll stand out enough. You light up the night. I don't know. I like that. I think it's a nice, simple card. I'm tempted to crop it down and put it on a card base. I'm not really sure what I want to mount this on yet. I guess let me go look at my paper stash and I'll be back. Okay, after looking around, this is kind of what I've decided to try. I trimmed this down just a little bit, so now it's 4 by 5 1/4. And I found some Shimmer Spritz, and I'm going to give this a light spritzing. My hope is that it doesn't leave big blobs here. So we're just going to give it a real fine spritz just to make it kind of look like it has a starry night, which the camera probably is not picking that up, but there is just a smidgen of glitter on this to make it look starry. And then I'm going to add that to a black piece of cardstock. Okay, I did decide that I want to put some white matte cardstock behind this. It adds a border, a little more finished look, I think. I'm really sorry the camera doesn't pick up that shine, but kind of a little bit. But it's just enough to add some interest. This kit really lends itself to some really clean and simple cards, which personally I really like. I like that look. Very cool. So we have a silhouetted camel against the night sky. That's card number 4. Alright, for card number 5, I die cut a panel with like a postage stamp die cut. And I'm going to sponge this in a more traditional colors for like a sunset or sunrise. I'm going to use Spice Marmalade and Abandoned Coral. I'm going to do a blend here. I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch the whole thing. Okay, looks a little splotchy on the camera, but in real life it doesn't. What I'm going to do though is I'm shaking up my shimmer mist. I'm going to spray this. I think it helps the colors blend together, and I love the little glittery, especially get that real fine if you hold it way up. Spray. And I'm going to let that dry, and while that's drying, I'm going to get my mini Misty out to stamp some palm trees. And I'm going to use the big palm tree, and then I think I'm also going to use the small palm tree. Okay. And I'm going to put this kind of in the center of my Misty so I can stamp on either side of it, hopefully without moving that panel. And what I want to do is kind of create a frame with the trees. And actually one of the things I'm going to do is take this marker, the black marker we used to color in the camel on the last card, and I'm going to draw a hill, bend that palm tree in towards the center, and I'm going to be using VersaFine here to stamp. Oops, I didn't mean to drop it on my card. Okay, very nice. All right, and then I'm going to clean this off, and I'm going to move the stamp. Smaller palm tree image on the other side. And I'm hoping this looks like they're farther away, so kind of more in the distance here. And pull this off. Add a bigger one that's up close. Like just one little baby one over here on the side, just to balance out the card. Now for the sentiment, I'm choosing Another Day in Paradise, and I'm kind of evening that up or centering that with the trees, because it's really actually I think almost the focal point of this card. And I'm just using the grid lines on my Misty to make sure that it's even. And I'm going to stamp that. Awesome. So I'm going to glue this down, and card number 5 will be done. Here's card number 5. I really wish you could see the sparkle on this card, though. It just doesn't show up on the camera. All right, for card number 6, I had a piece of that pink paper left over. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and dry emboss using the stencil to get that pattern onto the back of this paper. Okay, so I was able to do, I had to play with my machine a little bit, but I was able to get it to dry emboss. It is really subtle, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the stencil back over the way I had it as I was dry embossing it. And I'm going to take the Abandoned Coral ink, which was pretty close to this piece of paper, which is why I chose it in the first place. And I'm just going to pounce on top. Hopefully, let's see if it's showing. I'm trying to add and darken up It's subtle. I can see the camera is not picking that up at all. But it is darkening up the spaces underneath. I like stencils. I don't love them. One of the reasons is I think they create this really busy background, and I really do like clean and simple as my kind of style of card. And so sometimes I have a hard time using them, but I'm pushing myself to try it. And I'm trying to create a subtle background rather than a in-your-face, look, I used a stencil background. What what I'm going to do is see if I can grab a slightly, this is candied apple. See if that helps. I'm lining my stencil back up. This is a little darker. So this is going to add some variation in here too, which is kind of neat. So there'll be a couple colors sponged on here. Now, you probably should tape your stencil down. I'm impatient. And that looks pretty awesome, actually. Alright, so putting that away, let me see if I can get that to show up. So there we go, we've got an embossed background, but in the raised parts are now sponged lightly with a mixture of candy apple and the coral. I'm going to just take a baby wipe and wipe the stencil off. Alright, so I played with a little bit with this off camera because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But what I settled on is I die cut out of glitter paper. This is a butterfly from my favorite things. I don't know who makes this Hello die specifically, but I don't know. Several companies have stuff that are very, very similar. So what I decided to do was glue these on top like so. So alright, so let's start assembling. Alright, here's card number 6. I cheated a little bit by using some other dies, but I used the stencil. Kind of a neat way of doing that. I like that more than I thought I would when I first started out. Hope you enjoyed this card as well. So here's card 6. Alright, for card number 7, I die cut a panel that's 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And I really like that sky combination that I did before, so I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to use candied apple, abandoned coral, and spiced marmalade to kind of create a sunset look here. And I don't know, the camera picks this up as kind of blotchy, but in real life it's not. Hopefully the photos that go with this, I hope you'll take my word for it, and we'll look at the photos at the end of this video, and you can see that it actually looks a lot better than it does through the lens of the camera. Okay, so I'm going to set these aside, and I'm also going to do the same thing again. I'm going to create a ground with my marker. You could use the sand dunes, but it's really a large stamp, and the dunes are kind of they have a large like wave to them, and I just wanted a real subtle, like curved, maybe I'll make this a little higher, like wave to it, because I don't want this to be the focal point, but I do want a place for my character to sit. Okay. And I've already colored and cut out a camel. And I found this sentiment in my stash. It's from Technique Tuesdays. Here's the stamp set from Technique Tuesday. It's all about a llama, but a llama and camels are related, and they both spit. And I just thought this was really funny, and I liked it. And so we're going with it. You could also computer generate this sentiment if you like. Alright, so I'm going to glue my little camel guy down. Okay, to add some dimension or interest to the back panel of this card, I decided to do another tone on tone, and I'm using one of the background add-ons. You could use that stencil again. I don't know, I really love background stamps, so this was just, it's easier, faster. So I'm doing a blue on blue. It's real faint, and it's not supposed to be the focal point of the card, but it just kind of adds a little bit of dimension to that blue paper. And I picked blue because that camel has a blue, I don't know, coat blanket on his back, and I just thought that kind of pulls that in a little bit. I'm trying to decide if I want to do a black mat or not. Alright, so I'm going to adhere this blue panel to a white side fold card. Let's try it one more time without. I don't know, I think the black mat just helps ground this image a little bit. Kind of pulls in that silhouette-y kind of feel, which is kind of a neat thing about this set. I like the silhouette images in it. There we go. And now we have card number 7. And if you didn't like this sentiment, you could always switch this up and put a sentiment that comes in the set. I thought that was fun. Alright, for card number 8, I cut a panel that's 4 1/4 by, 4 by 5 1/4. So just shy of an A2 card. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off a section of this card with some Post-it notes. I'm doing another experiment here, something new to me. I've been playing with these distress inks and I really like them. And like I told you in the beginning, this stamp set to me just said sunset, sunrises. So I hope you're not getting sick of them, but I'm kind of enjoying doing them. And I'm setting the tree here because there's a size I have in mind. I know you can't see this very well. I'll try to slide this up a little bit. So there's a grid lines on my mat, and I'm just following the grid lines to line my Post-it notes up in effort to make them straight. And the idea is I'm just masking off the top of my card. That is what I'm hoping to do. And I'm also going to mask off, let's see. Again, I'm making this up. I have really no idea what I'm doing. The bottom of this card. I'll hold this up so you can see what I did here. Alright, so I took my just shy of A2 card and I used the grid lines to take my Post-it notes to mask off the bottom and the top part of this card so that I'm only inking up this middle section. And again, I know you're probably sick of it, but I am going to use the same colors I did before because they work really well. And I like the look that they're creating to get that sunset. Could always switch this up for like a night sky or something. I don't know. I love the way this contrasts with the black ink. That silhouette-y look. I have a little stray mark right here, but I'm going to do some stamping, so I'm kind of hoping that the stamping will cover that up. I'm going to use my Misty again because I'm going to be, if I have to, I want to be able to stamp again if it doesn't show up. And I'm using this palm tree to create another scene with the VersaFine ink. And I purposely made it so that the palm tree will stick out over the top. I thought it would just be kind of a cool contrast. So we have it against the colors and we also have it against the white, that sharp black look. And I think this is going to look pretty awesome when it's all said and done. At least I hope. Well, I guess we'll find out. So I'm going to clean this out. And I'm going to take my marker again and ground this image. I'm going to take my Post-it notes here again. Probably should have done this beforehand. And I'm doing it this way because I want a soft hill. Those dunes in the set are pretty severe, and I just wanted a soft transition, a place for these things to be grounded. But you could use those. Alright, so I'm pulling the palm trees off my card. And I'm going to pull out these camels again. And again, try to bend them. Let's see. To the gradient of that hill that I just created. It might be easier to stamp your camels and then draw your hill in. Learn from my lesson. I guess I can always go back in and add some hill if they don't touch. I'm just trying to see, and I think I did it. Yeah, I'm going to stamp these again just to get them to be a little bit more solid black, and I'm going to have to raise my hill up with that marker just a smidgen in a couple spots, but did a pretty good job of stamping. So we'll just there we go. So we have no floating camels. All right, put our camels back. I'm going to pull out my favorite sentiment from this stamp set. It says, "I'd cross the Sahara for you." Okay. All right, to finish up card number 8, I'm going to adhere it to a top folding black card. Another really clean and simple, good for masculine card. You could also mass produce these pretty easily. All right, at any rate, there's card number 8. All right, for card number 9, I'm going to switch this up a little bit. I'm going to make an immersion card, which is something I haven't made here in a few years, so hopefully I remember how to do this. But what I did was I took a piece of paper that was 4 inches by 4¼ inches by 11. So this is 4¼ this way. And then I scored this at 1 inch, 2 inch, 4 inch, and then 6 inch. And then I kind of accordion fold it, and I get a fold that goes like this. This will fit into an A2 card. Then I cut another panel that's just shy of this back piece here, and I'm going to sponge this with Distress Inks to look like a night sky. Just because I want it to look like a starry night, I'm going to find my Shimmer Spritz. It's my new favorite toy. It's actually not new, but enjoying it. And just giving it a real fine mist. Just add some shimmer without really activating anything. It also helps the colors blend just a smidgen. It makes it look like stars. Love it. Okay, let that set aside. And then something I did before I even sat down is I stamped the desert scene a handful of times. I think I stamped it twice, and I cut it apart. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to build a scene here. So I think I'm just going to play with this a minute and see how this looks. kind of hoping to glue this on the third layer. However, I'm noticing that if I do that, I'll have this white piece that sticks up here, but actually that might be okay. I could probably just color that and it would look like another dune. I think that's what I'm going to do here. So what I'm going to do is on this first tier, which is one of the 1-inch score lines, I'm going to glue in one bank here. And then on the back of the next, so this piece here isn't glued down yet, but I'm just kind of trying to line up the banks. I'm going to color these two white pieces here so they look like sand dunes. I'm hoping that will look okay. And I'm going to trim off the extra paper that sticks out on either side. Okay, and these will all go in the trash. Alright, I'm going to go color this with my Copics and then I will be back. Okay, so I colored in those little sandhill things and I realized that, I guess it's been a long time since I made one of these and my card won't stand up the way I had imagined. So I took a piece of 4 1/4 width long paper and I'm just going to make like a little tent here, and this is going to help my, or at least I hope it's going to help my card stand up. So I'm going to glue this to the back here to kind of create like a little bit of an easel. Now my card will stand up, which is what I was hoping. So I'm going to crease these down really well. I don't know where my bone folder is. There we go. So as I'm looking onto it this way, you're looking down, but as I'm looking onto it this way, it looks like a scene, and that's the view that I have as I'm looking at it, or the viewer if it was sitting on your desk. So that's what we're hoping. I might go in on this layer and add another layer of sand dunes, like cut them out. I think that would help with the look, so I'll have to do that, but let's do this step because I have it all ready. I colored and cut out one of the camels, and I'm going to slip his feet into this layer here so he's part of my scene. So I'm only going to put glue on the very bottoms of his feet. So I only put glue like at the very bottom edges of these toes, and I'm going to pick up this edge here and slip him in underneath this piece here of the sand dunes. So it looks like he's part of my scene here. Okay. I think I'm going to stamp another, I think this is my mask, but let's just, I think if I put another sand dune in there all the way to the bottom, I think it will look better. So I'm going to stamp and then color and cut out and adhere another sand dune there while I let him dry. Okay, so I colored another sand dune and I put it into the back of the back panel of this immersion card. So this is what it would look like when it's closed, and when it's open, this is what it would look like to the viewer. This is what it looks like standing up on the desk. There's still a little bit of that panel shows at the very bottom, but I don't think anyone's going to look that hard. I'm not too worried about that. If you're super worried about it, you could, you know, cover that up with a strip of paper or another sand dune or whatever. Well, what I'm going to do is, because there's so much desert, I thought the I will never desert you, or desert you, would be the perfect sentiment. So I'm using my anti-static powder tool. here. And I'm going to use hoping this ink, the distress ink in the background, you could leave that black. I mean, that does look nice. Should we leave it black? You know what? It's easier not to mess the card up if we leave it black. I was going to emboss it in gold, and I thought that might look good with all these browns, but I'm really worried that the Distress Oxide ink is going to hold on to all of this powder and is going to make a huge mess. So the black really actually shows up really well. So in an effort to not mess up the card, I think I'm just going to leave it as is, and this is card number 9, is the immersion card, I Will Never Desert You, with the camel. Alright, for card number 10, I'm making a slider, and I've already cut out and colored the 3 pieces I'm going to use. I'll hold up each one. There's the magic carpet. I did this in neutrals because I didn't want this to be a focal point. Then I did the girls in shades of pink, the girl in shades of pink, and the boy in the shades of blue and gray. So I'm going to set those aside. First thing I did was I cut a panel the same size as an A2 card, and I'm going to use my distress inks to create a background. And this time I'm going to try picked raspberry and seedless preserves. I'm adding in some candied apple. I also think I'm going to add in some worn violet. And I'm going to assemble my characters here. Wonder what you would talk about on a magic carpet ride. So I'm going to set them aside so they can dry. They're going to be the slider action piece on my card. And I have these dies here, and they're from Waffle Flower. They just released not that long ago, and they're designed to help you create a slider. So I'm going to go and die cut the pieces, and I'm just following the directions that are on the packaging. So if you do decide to chew this, Waffle Flower has directions. I think it's actually on their website, but you can get those and follow along. Okay, I think I have everything die cut. I just used the dies, like I said, nothing outside of that. And I'm going to try to assemble this, and this is my first time assembling, so we're going to see how I do here. But it cut these 2 slits in the card, and there's this piece here that has these little shutters. And I'm going to thread these, or attempt to thread these. There we go, around that little piece. Hopefully you can see that. They just stick out ever so slightly. I feel like they should be longer, but they're probably that length for a reason. And I'm going to take a drop of glue, and literally just a drop, to adhere on this piece here. Also die cut a piece of this skyline, and you hear that? If you can hear that in the background, that is my son. I'm running out of time for this. My husband has him in the other room, but our Christmas festivities are about to begin, and I'm supposed to have this mess cleaned up. So this is my last ditch effort to get ready before the holidays. So I'm adhering on that skyline. This works kind of hard, but I wonder if when you put the card together, the back helps act as a guide, and I think it will work easier. Kind of wondering. And now I'm cutting a small piece of fun foam, and I'm going to adhere that onto the top of this white piece. And I'm doing this because I want the couple to be raised up just a little bit on this sliding thing. The bad part is, and actually I just had an idea. I'm gonna actually put fun foam on the back of her, but I'm actually not gonna glue this onto anything. So it's just gonna help her stay raised up, but it should still allow it to slide. I like this idea. Cool. Okay, so this is dried a little bit. One of the things I was doing while that was drying was I went through my Copic markers and I picked out some colors that are very similar to the background. And so I can color these little white spaces around these people so that this white, there's not white in that little spot. I don't know, those little details bug me. So is it perfectly matched? No, but I think it's better than that bright, bright white. And I even picked it out for the carpet so it matches the pink in the sky. So I don't know, call me crazy. Just think it makes a difference, helps it blend in a little bit. Alright, so that's a tiny little detail. The other thing I did was I put on some strong adhesive on the back of this, mostly focused it around here. I was going to pop this up, but I think the stability of the card here helps this work better. So I'm going to not pop it up in hopes that when I get this glued together, it will work perfectly. It works a little hard right at the moment, but I think as we train the paper, 1 and 2, you know, when you push on it, this wants to bow, so I'm thinking that having that extra piece there in the back will prevent that, allowing it to work a little easier. And I'm just, well, one bad part about strong adhesive is it's strong, so it's down there, so we're gonna go with it. Let's see. Come on. It does go in there, just works a little hard. Pulls really easy. Well, that went in a lot easier, so maybe this is just doing this a handful of times, kind of trains the paper so it's used to moving. There we go. Alright, and now I'm going to trim this off. Actually, I'm going to take this to my paper trimmer and trim this even. Okay, so I just took it over to the paper trimmer and just cut this all flush so that there was no weird parts hanging off. And just because I'm want to make sure that this is still working, and it is. You just have to work a little bit to put it in. And the part of the die kit was these little pull tabs. I like that it has a little arrow because card makers would know that this is a slider, but if you give this to somebody who's not into cards, they probably are going to be like, what am I supposed to do? Then the last step is going to be adding a sentiment. And there we go, we have card number 10. And this does work easier now that we've got that backed, and I think things are starting to dry. Thanks guys for watching this series. I'll have photos of these cards here at the end so you can see, and hopefully that the blending shows up better than it does in the video. It looks very choppy to me through the screen, but in real life it doesn't. So hopefully that will show up better. If you like this, please subscribe, leave me a comment. It really helps motivate me, especially right now. Like, it's such a crazy time of year. It's really easy just to say, forget it, I'm not going to do it. But because so many of you guys leave positive comments, it really inspires me to get in the craft room and make these cards. And hopefully you're enjoying them as much as I'm enjoying creating them. Let me know what is your favorite, and if you are celebrating a holiday, I hope you and your family have a good one. Have a great day, guys. Bye.